What's up, everybody? Welcome to the podcast now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about if we're going to get a release date for Suicide Squad Killed the Justice League at DC Fandome. Long title. I don't even know if that all fits in a YouTube title, but thank you for joining me, and here we are. We are still just a few weeks away from DC Fandome, and we've talked a lot about Gotham Knights, but obviously now, just briefly, I want to talk about Suicide Squad. I do think 100% we see this game at DC Fandome. I think it makes a lot of sense. I think it would make no sense to not show it. You know what I mean? So I think we will see it. I honestly feel like it's time we see gameplay. We could even see maybe a demonstration much like what we got of Gotham Knights, although it's a little unsure. And we can talk about that, in future videos, and I probably will over the next 2-3 weeks. But for this video, I want to focus specifically on that release date. Obviously, release dates are important. I love talking about them. People love asking me about them, and all of that stuff is completely fine, okay? What's difficult about this one, right, is I honestly think there's a lot of avenues it could go down, okay? And I guess you could, that's a cop-out thing, right? You can kind of say that for anything. You could even say that, honestly, for Gotham Knights. But Gotham Knights does influence it. I really do think Gotham Knights influences it, and maybe even in a way Hogwarts Legacy influences it, but we don't really know, and I do understand, different properties, it's not in the DC Universe, Hogwarts, and we also don't know really when the next time we'll see that game is. So, and again, those are all things that I do influence it, and we don't really have answers for. So where am I going with that? All right, they could give the release date. I think If I really just sit down, stare at my screen, and think about, is it possible they do it? Yes. DC Fandome is October 16th. If this game comes out next fall, which, remember, when the game was shown, it said 2022. Now, I had always assumed it was extremely late 2022, okay? I've always thought that. In fact, when Hogwarts and when Gotham Knights both got delayed earlier this year, I believe I said out loud, right? I did think Suicide Squad would be pushed to 2023. I still have a feeling that is probably going to happen, although obviously, I don't know that for sure, right? It's just kind of a feeling I have. And again, that's another influencer, right, in terms of what actually happens. If the game comes out next year, again, I never have thought the game's coming out in the first half. And I also think now with Gotham Knights is being delayed, and even with Hogwarts Legacy being delayed, I don't think there's a chance at all that Suicide Squad is coming out the first half of next year. I don't know if people think that, but I've never thought that, and I certainly don't think it now. So I would say second half, specifically the end. And I've always said that. So October, November. Now the issue is that's kind of been my date for Hogwarts Legacy that I think is I think Hogwarts Legacy was delayed a full year. And I would even argue maybe Gotham Knights was delayed, potentially a full year as well. So we'll have to see how everything kind of, plays itself out. But would Suicide Squad come out at the same time as Hogwarts Legacy? That's another potential issue that happens where, yes, they are different games, but they're both huge WB games, and it doesn't matter if the games are similar in terms of where they're placed or characters or anything like that. The fact is they you don't place them too close. I would honestly argue at the bare minimum you'd probably have a month and a half to 2 months separating these titles. So if Hogwarts came out in September and Suicide Squad came out November, I do think that would work, but I do not think these would come out back-to-back months. I don't think they would come out the same month. It's just, I really don't think it's going to happen. I would place, I think, I'm not a betting man, but I would place money on that. I really would. So, what do? Well, we've had games, and as we've clearly seen over the last couple months, we're getting games as release dates, which is great. We need those so that the games will actually come out, but, Starfield is a good example of a game that they announced the release date really, really early, and I mean specific release date, right? We know the date Starfield's supposed to come out next November, and they announced that back in June. Now, that's extremely rare for anybody to do that. That is, I feel like they're trying to, they were taking a shot in the dark and just being well, we hope we can get it out this day, but we want to make people confident in us, so we're going to do it. Honestly, I applaud them for it, but I also think they're kind of BSing people, and they kind of, they're just kind of taking a risk on that, a big risk, so we'll have to see. But again, that was back in June, so now here we are again, when DC Fandome happens, October 16th. If the game came out, say, next October, that's a full year. So I would still say getting a specific date is the least likely of any option humanly possible for Suicide Squad, okay? I do think it's too early. Do we get like a season or a kind of a quarter of the year? I do think that is more possible. Again, I don't know if that would happen either, though. And again, what I mean by that is fall, holiday. Those are really the two things. Again, like if they said spring 2022, I'd be super happy. I'd also be insanely shocked. You know what I mean? Because it's like, oh my God, it's just in a couple months away, basically. It's in like half a year. But I do think it's possible they say fall 2022. Holiday, and holiday really is November, December. That's what holiday of any given year in the gaming industry means, right? So I could see that. Again, though, I would honestly say what I think the two most likely things are is still, I guess maybe three most likely things are still just saying the year, like just in case people forgot, which it was just a joke, by the way, because nobody really forgot. But like, you know, they show the gameplay, they show a new trailer, they show whatever they're going to show, and at the end they say 2022. Like literally nothing has changed. So we still don't know when, and although I think by them saying that would mean late 2022. Otherwise you would have given a more like a smaller window for it. Okay, so I think it could just say 2022. It could say nothing. There could be no year, which is very scary and weird, and I don't like it when they do that. Actually, God of War did that for some reason, even though I really don't think they should have done that. So you could do that and just upset people and worry people. So I really advise against that one. Or again, the wild card of the entire thing is you say 2023, or maybe you even say early 2023 or spring 2023 or I don't know, something like that. You know what I mean? Or winter. Very few. Kingdom Hearts is one of the only ones I actually know that's ever said winter of any given year, and obviously Kingdom Hearts is run by Mad Men, so I don't know if you want to necessarily copy them. And I'm joking, by the way, but no, those are, I would say, the best, not even the best case scenarios, and that's actually what I was going to say. I mean, some of those are better than others, but that's what I think is most likely to happen. We either get just we just get confirmation, you know what I mean, that it's still coming out in 2022 by giving us the year. They don't show a year, which just makes things a lot more confusing for a lot of people, or they, throw the wild card, which I think is very possible that it gets delayed till 2023. And again, I mean, there's so many things that are kind of happening in the background. One thing, I guess, to note, I am a big advocate, as I've said even in this video, right, about how I do think Hogwarts and Gotham Knights does impact it. I guess one thing to note is, like, obviously they are all different studios. They all start at different times of making the game. I'm not saying it's impossible for Rocksteady to finish it, and it is kind of rare for studios to hold on to games. So I'm not saying, like, if they're done, if they actually finish it, they'll figure it out. That's kind of the point I really want to make clear. Like, if they are done and Hogwarts Legacy is done, say around the same time, I do think they figure it out where they space it out a little bit. You know what I mean? Like a month and a half at the bare minimum. I do think they do that, but I think they'll figure it out. I'm not saying they're going to go to one of them and say, yeah, good job finishing, work on your next thing, just hold this game for like 3 months and we'll come back and we'll release it. Like, that's not going to happen. But one example that's not really proven, but I just believe it in my heart, is really last year when The Last of Us and Ghost of Tsushima were coming out. Now, those games came out literally about 1 month apart from each other, and to me, it could not have been more clear that they wanted, for whatever reason, they wanted The Last of Us out first, right? Remember, when The Last of Us was delayed indefinitely, Ghost of Tsushima was still going to come out, and people were like, wow, here's the switch. Ghost actually will come out first. But then they literally delayed Ghost for 1 month. They delayed Ghost of Tsushima 1 month, and they basically put the last... Now, yeah, there's some dates that are a little off, but then they put The Last of Us Part 2 kind of in the spot that Ghost originally was in. So, in my opinion, I think Sucker Punch was done. I actually think Sucker Punch finished their game before Naughty Dog finished that. You know what I mean? But I do think they held off on it for a little. So I do think that happens. I don't think it happens for, like, again, they're not going to go and say, okay, half a year, sit on the game. Don't work on it. You guys are completely finished. Instead of releasing it, we'll circle back in 5 to 6 months. Like, that stuff doesn't happen. But I do think there are minds at work where it's like, no, we want this first, or you cannot release these games 2 weeks like in a row, or even like a couple weeks, separating them. That's not a good idea because of marketing purposes, because they know people can't spend. And I get they're different games, but they're really not all that different, and they do speak to somewhat of a general audience. So that's just, a lot of these are just my opinions, but I really do think I'm going to be proven right on a lot of this stuff. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Make sure, as always, you guys are subscribed, bell icon turned on so you know when all these videos go up. If you want to support us on Twitter or our second YouTube channel or through Patreon or YouTube memberships, links for all of them are in the description below, along with the join button, obviously next to the subscribe button. Thank you for watching, guys. I really do appreciate it, and I hope to see you all on the next video.